Pops up on the screen. It might be kind of hard to see. We got to kill the front lights. We can do that too. But on the screen it says dual mast width error. So it'll pop up. You'll be paving. This error pops up on the middle of the screen. Everybody freaks out. We go through this in the training before you guys get out on the site, but it never fails that the second we're driving to the airport, the phone rings that this error popped up and nobody knows what to do, because shit gets nervous when there's 2, 3 trucks, whatever it might be. So you see this error. How many people have seen this error? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Quite a few people have seen it in here. If you haven't seen it yet, or you're going to get a system, it'll pop up at some point. If you see this, it says, I give you a hint, there's 4 causes. I don't know, we didn't really touch on it too much yesterday, but there's 4 causes. I just want to hear from anybody what you guys would try, what you guys think it could be, and what you do to fix it. And it's just shotgun fire, whoever wants to talk and talk.
It always happens in the radiuses for me, on island mainly. I always have to turn the 3D off and get the machine moved a little bit until my masts are seen again.
Okay.
They're not in line.
Okay.
And then I can go right back into 3D. It does cause a little bit of the difference. The machine might go a little bit lower or a little bit higher than what it's supposed to be, but then once you pick back up on 3D, they'll just have to fix that error.
Okay. So you're going around a radius usually, and this error pops up, and the way to get rid of it is to go just manual, steer the machine out of it, and then kick 3D back on, and it usually just clears this. You don't have to do anything on the control box.
Nope.
Okay. And you're saying it happens in a radius and when the masts line up,
yep.
Usually. So for everybody, that's the most common time that you're going to see this. So you're going around a radius, you got your 2 masts on a power curber. This is the front of the machine. I said you usually want to run the front one higher. Going around the radius, we're coming this way. My total stations are tracking, and let's say that you guys are all the total station and you're tracking this front prism. As I come around the radius and I start to turn around, let's say you're tracking the back one actually. I come around this radius. As I start to turn around, at some point my front mast is going to block the back one. You guys are tracking the back one. When that mast gets blocked or that target gets blocked, it only gets blocked partially. So I'm coming around, that back target gets blocked, but it's not fully blocked. You're the total station, you can kind of see this target, but you're also picking up some sort of interference in front of it. It could be the mast in front, it could be the target in front, whatever it is. What's happening is when you measure up that machine, when we do it later today too, we define when we shoot these 2 masts what this distance is. So it could be 8 feet, whatever it might be. PCS900 knows, all right, it should always be 8 feet. If it's anything other than 8 feet, something's wrong. As I come around that radius and I pick up that interference, this distance gets thrown off because I'm actually pulling a distance to the opposite mast or whatever it's blocking. And so it says, hey, there's no way that my masts are this width, so something's wrong. That's why it says dual mast width. That distance is disrupted, and it's usually because there's an interference, there's something blocking that visual between the total station and its target it's trying to track. It could be the target, it could be the opposite mast, it could be a smokestack on the machine, it could be operator, it could just be the hopper on the top of the truck that's dumping in front of you, a whole bunch of different things, but that's the most common issue. And what you said you do to fix it is you switch off 3D and you just pull add manual, and
it's usually only like less than a foot.
Exactly.
You have to go to get back on.
So yeah, and that would be roughly the width of your mast or your target, so that makes sense. So that's an option to get through it, is you just turn off 3D, pull through that spot, just pave manual through that spot if you can do it, and then throw 3D back on, and it'll clear this. The other option is to say, hey, target total station B is looking at the right, A is looking at the left. We get this error. What I can do is I can say A, look at the right mast, B, look at the left mast, and usually that clears it, because usually the two have a different angle of the opposite mast, and they can see it. Clears the error. You don't have to switch out of 3D. You can just pull through.
That's what I've done
Keep
in the
going.
past. Flip the guns, flip the targets on the guns. Sometimes, maybe hit the dual mast, the quick flash, and you might have to drop out of the job and just re-enter into the job.
Okay.
We don't always catch it either, but we try as we're setting up the guns too, where we can see that. So we set up another gun, knowing that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Identifying where the dual mast is gonna. 'Cause
Yeah.
It happens a lot.
Yeah.
Sunlight too.
Sunlight gets it. Yeah.
I've gotten direct into the sun. It's like going down the road and the sun's just glaring right at that front target. Maybe you got it like a bad angle, and that'll cause that.
Yeah.
It's reflective stop signs.
Those sapling trees, sometimes when the wind starts blowing, and like your total station's behind like a small tree, it's not enough to block the connection,
Exactly.
but it'll just wave in front, and the machine will still go.
But it's throwing that distance off with like the tree leaves and stuff in there.
Yeah, you gotta watch that for sure.
Yeah. So you said one other thing though. You said dropping the design and reloading it.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
So option one to get rid of this, let's say you pull through that radius and this pops up, you can switch the targets on the total station, say look at left, look at right, usually it'll clear it. You can pull through manual. The other option is to drop the design and reload it. So I go pick my design and say none, and then choose my design again. Usually what we find with that one, if that's what fixes it, usually it's something else that was happening. It wasn't that the two masts lined up and it blocked it. It's usually something else going on in the background that causes that. Does anybody have any, we'll come back to that, but does anybody have any other causes of why this could happen? There's 4. We really hit one of them. There's one that nobody ever gets, and there's a couple other options too. You kind of got part of the one. Dropping the design and reloading it is part of the answer to one of them.
So your gun's set up and it's causing those offsets to be in there, and so the mast, it's still doing the same thing, the mast's just not lining up, so you gotta clear those offsets by dropping the design.
So with the transitions you're saying?
Like the transition tolerances, or even if just your gun, you got a bad control point or something and the resection looks good, or you just okay through it and then you hook up, the mast just isn't correct.
So you hit on 2 of them actually there. So one that we've seen is, and it's not every single time, I think you guys actually said it yesterday too. The thing we found is if you get over like 7/100ths of transition offset error in the system, you can get this to pop up. I think you guys said usually around 1/10 is when it comes up. But that's potentially what is causing it, and that's why dropping the design and reloading it fixes it, because that clears all of the transition offsets from your machine, from the system. So when you get 7/100ths to 1/10, potentially you can get this error. You switch the targets, doesn't fix it, there's nothing blocking the total station. It's possibly that you have a whole bunch of transition offset error built into the background, and the system just says there's some shit going on back there. We gotta clear this out and kind of start fresh.
There's times where if your guns cross one another, sometimes they don't like that either. That'll throw a dual mast, If I have the gun on the front target and one on the rear, but they're crisscross, the one that's ahead is actually looking at the back.
Sure.
That'll cause an issue sometimes too.
Okay. I
Not all
haven't
the
seen that
time.
before, yeah.
Not all the time though, so sometimes you can get yourself out of a pinch and not have
Sure.
Looking on manual mode, scoot ahead a little bit.
Now, I've seen the sun affect it before. I haven't seen the sun cause the error, but I've seen the sun coming up. Usually it's in the morning behind the target. The sun is rising and it's directly behind the target. The total stations won't pick it up.
Can't see.
Yeah, it won't see it because the sun is just beaming over the radio lights that are on the target.
Fog will do it too.
Yeah, fog will do. Fog's terrible. Mist. Yeah. Because all this thing is it's a light-based. The total stations, they're just sending little light signals to the target. It's measuring how long it takes to come back. And if something's disrupting that, like fog or mist or the sun, then that will cause some of these issues with the target being picked up. But the other one is that your resection, that, like you said, Mason, we've seen it where if someone shoots 2 back sights, they shoot 2, and then they put the total station in machine control mode, you can get this to pop up because maybe your 2 targets, your 2 back sights that you shot were not the greatest. Maybe the setup of them wasn't the greatest, or they just weren't the tightest. If you add in a 3rd control point, you back sight 3 control points, that usually will fix this issue. It'll usually get rid of it. So we hit 3 of them. Nobody ever gets the 4th one. Does anybody have any other ideas?
Picking up another target on another machine. Dozer drives by with a
That could be,
machine
yeah.
target,
Yeah.
grabs that, and it goes, you're 200 feet away, or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, that definitely could be it. So the target IDs, like we talked about yesterday, this left one always is sending out a signal for target ID 9. The right one's always sending out a signal for 10. If I have a motor grader come by, just blowing by on the other side of the road, and it's on 9 or 10, the total station can grab that and start going with it. And like you said, it's going to throw this distance off, and it's going to throw that error for sure. Any other ideas?
One thing I can think of is maybe just like an issue with the design itself, or
Potentially, yeah. The design can cause some weird stuff. I'm not a design guy, so I like to blame everything on the design, so I definitely can do that.
but we should be making calls that's something known that's really wrong.
So the 4th one is, I won't shoot through them yet. The 4th one, usually if you call SITECH or you call Power Curber, all this technology does weird shit sometimes. What's the fix? You can't figure it out. What's the fix to turn it off and on? So PCS900 has a function built into it that when I turn off PCS and I turn it back on and I pick up my total stations again, I say A, look at left, B, look at right. If PCS sees that the last time you hooked up to it and the time, if the PCS sees the last position you had and the new position you are exactly the same, your machine has not moved at all, it will throw this error on here because it doesn't want you to start with transition offsets for the day when you start paving. It's kind of stupid to me because no matter what, you guys are going to pull off at the end of the day and wash your machine, but it's built into the background to say, hey, we don't want you to start paving with those offsets like we talked about. We want you to clear those out. We're going to throw this so that you drop your design and reload it or do something else to clear them out. But that could be a thing that happens to you guys because you might turn off PCS or turn the machine off, key it back on, turn it back on, and you didn't move the machine at all. You hook your guns back up and this pops up and you're like, what the hell? We've fixed one issue and now we got a new issue. This is what potentially is happening. So if you're gonna turn off the system, maybe you restart the machine for, nobody ever takes lunch, but we'll just pretend you take lunch when you're paving and you turn it back on, move your machine like 4 feet ahead before you hook the guns back up, and it will prevent this from popping up. It'll stop this from popping up. It's like a fail safe, but I think some of the engineers when they made this 10 years ago don't realize that concrete pavers don't just turn off and everybody just goes home and quits for the day. So most of the time you guys are going to wash your machine and pick back up and go. But this is potentially what you could get. So we'll run through what all the issues were again. So the very first one, you hit on it, was usually the problem is the line of sight between the total station and my target being tracked is interrupted. Something is blocking between the two. So it's partially blocked. My gun can still see the target, but it also sees a distance to something else. Could be the smokestack, the target, the operator, anything like that. One thing you can do if you want to figure out if potentially you're getting blocked by partially something else is you can usually look at the picture of your machine on the screen. You can go to that plan view. You can usually see if I was running on this curb, island, and I was going straight, my machine should show up straight on the picture. If your target's partially blocked, usually your machine's going to be turned one way or another because it's tracking, it thinks you're turned one way or another because of that being blocked. The other thing you can do is you can look at your text items. Usually it'll say go left 10 feet or go right 12 feet, whatever it might be, because it thinks that you're turned somewhere else at that point. So you can always look at the text items or the picture. The easiest thing to do is to, if you think it's getting partially blocked, is to go look through the total station. Because we've had this happen before where we're on site and this pops up and we're like, there's no way that total station is blocked. There's absolutely no way that something's in the way of it. And then it's just the very top of the hopper on the truck is blocking it by like this much or something like that. So going and looking right through the total station is the quick and easy way to figure out if that's what's going on. So solutions, like we said, swap the targets on the guns or pull the machine forward if you have to, or if you can. Okay, so here's kind of a picture of what we're talking about too. So you can see this is my target in the background there. My total station can still be tracking that target. It still can partially see the foil and the LEDs on it, but whatever this is in front of it is just barely blocking it. And so that's when this error pops up. The other thing, less common on power curbers, but a smokestack on the machine. So my target is right here. You can kind of see the isolators on the target. It's right behind there. It can see that sliver of the target behind that smokestack, and that's when this issue can happen. The transition offsets, like we said, if they build up too much, you can have this happen. So the one that nobody ever hits on, and I get it, I don't expect anybody to get this one unless you've been in this class 6 times, and we do this every year. But stopping your machine, turning off PCS900 and turning it back on without the machine moving at all when you hook the guns back up can cause this. And then the last one is just bad total station setup. And I'm not saying your total station setup is bad. I'm sure all of yours are fine and good. But potentially just you might have a control point that's a little bit off or a backside that's a little bit off, something like that. Adding a third control point in can help fix this from happening or mitigate this from happening.
One thing on number 2, one thing, it pretty much fixes it every time when you drop the design and then come back in. Unfortunately though, if there's 6500s in there, your machine's going to move 6500s, which you can imagine doesn't look real pretty on a straight stretch. So if we know that it's been rough all day where the guns are not set up perfectly, he'll dump out at a catch base and start over. You know what I mean?
I try to fuck around that shit at like a catch basin or.
Yeah.
That way, if the machine shifts,
And
you
then
gotta
you got
look at
visual
it.
to look at too, you know where your basins are set.
You do that on a straight stretch.
With the rollers.
It's tough to fix.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. 40-foot board might make it blend out a little bit.
Maybe.
gun placement though, you avoid 90% of the problems of just walking around the job prior to pouring and just looking, always kind of visualizing where the truck's gonna be as you're pouring, so that your angles of your guns try to get vantage points. If there's a solid, ledge or something, that you can just have one gun up like above everything, or on the insides of corners at intersections. That way, like if it's on the inside of the intersection corners, doesn't matter where you go across that intersection, that one is always going to have a good angle. And you put like 3 of them in an intersection, they're a pain in the ass.
Yeah. So, what they're saying is just to be careful when you drop your design and you reload it. Let's say you have that 65/100ths of error in the background. You cleared that out. The second you hook your total stations back up, they're no longer running that offset. So your machine is probably going to want to move over left or right or up or down just a little bit, which is if you're backing right up to, or you're pouring off a header that you just were on a second ago, it's not going to line up perfectly. What you can do is drop it at, like you said, at a catch basin. The other thing you can do is, if I was on grade, if I was online and I was on grade, and I need to drop this design in the middle of a straight section, I'll put my machine down. I'll look at what the cut fills read on there, or the in-out read on the screen for the machine, and I'll just offset with the legs until they read 0 again. Because my machine was reading 0 before. So if my machine says I need to go right 400ths, I'm just going to offset 400ths to say this is 0. You're good.
Somewhere to get back on.
Yeah. So that's a way to get around it.
Sometimes when we're blind, we'll steal our grade check.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's got the right angle, or it's not blocked. If you got 3 guns or 4 guns or 5 guns, if you're not too far away, use them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you got other guns, jump to them. That'll fix it easy. You don't have to switch targets or anything like that. The other thing too is it's sometimes, like you said, you'll learn as you're going around all these radiuses and using the system when this is probably going to pop up. If you keep a steady speed and move just a little bit quicker if you can, that will usually prevent this from happening. That's not always possible if you're pouring like a 2-foot radius and you got to go super slow around it. But if you know this is going to happen, you can sometimes speed the machine up a little bit, and it will usually mitigate that gap there. The total station, there's a certain window of when the total station it assumes where you're going. So let's say a truck drives in front of your total station. If you just keep moving at the same rate, it'll just assume that you're still going that direction. If it doesn't pick you up in like a second or two, then it will throw an error or say UTS lost, whatever. But the total station does have it built in where if you keep moving at the same speed or speed up just a little bit, it will assume where you're going, and usually it'll pick you back up and you can just keep paving. Does anybody have any questions on this, or if that how I worded it didn't make sense? Because this is the biggest thing that people run into, or if anybody's ran into this for other reasons too.
If you lose the signal, how long does it take for it to reacquire?
Yes.
sometimes it will grab it back instantly and you're happy, and then sometimes the guns sit there and just quick search and just do dumb shit, and you gotta run over there and flip through the guns back at the machine.
Yeah, sometimes it's fast.
I'd say 75% of the time it locks on right away though.
Yeah, a lot of times it's fast because it knows to just do a quick search in that little area where it had you last time, and then other times it's like somebody pissed it off and it just wants to mess with you a little bit, and it does like a big scan, and then it's faster, like you said, to run over and just point it at it. Usually it's like, if you have somebody who's pretty quick, it's like a minute or two and you have the thing back and going again. If the quick search, if it finds it, it's 20, 30 seconds, yeah, maybe. So it's not the biggest gap. Any other questions? Yeah. I'll say again, this is the biggest thing that people have happened.